I'm Edie Lush, and I'm here with Hub Culture at Transition Forum in Monaco. Really pleased to be joined by my new friend, Tim Papandreou. You are the founder of Emerging Transport Advisors. So tell me, first of all, you had a great speech in the conference center just a moment ago, talking about how transportation has a marketing problem. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we've been sold a bill of goods for the last 8 decades. We've been told that if we buy these cars, first of all, these cars are economically unsustainable. They're not a good investment. You pay about $35,000 for a car right now. The second you walk out of the showroom floor, you've probably lost 15%, 20%, but we only use them 5% of the time. The other 95% of the time, they're just stuck sitting doing nothing. And we only put one person in them generally, even though they're made for 5 or 6 or even 7 people with these large vehicles now. So it's like we've made this huge investment, we don't really use it, and it depreciates really rapidly. It's just not a good use of our resources. But because we've been marketed to say that if you do buy this car, you'll be hotter, sexier, you'll have higher status.
You'll be driving down the California highway
in like this open
wind
environment, wind in your hair.
Yeah.
It's freedom of movement. It's done all these amazing things. And then when we all buy one, we end up on a 8-lane freeway, frustrated like no end, using expletives that I'm not going to use right now because
sitting
you can't
in
get
traffic, right?
sitting in traffic, wasting time, energy, resources, emissions, and then collectively all that creates pollution, emissions, waste, crashes, etc. All these externalities that we as a general population have just accepted. And if this was an airline industry, we would shut this down. For example, we kill 1.4 million people a year in cars.
That's crazy. 1.4 million people a year in cars.
Right.
And where is that?
That's all over the world.
Around the world.
All over the world. So they're either being hit car to car, car to pedestrian or bicyclist or some other situation. That's the equivalent of a 737 falling out of the sky pretty much every day. That's so unacceptable. That would shut down the aviation industry within like a couple of days. And yet we just accept that because it's just a part of our life. And over the last 8 decades of really strong marketing, we've kind of become numb to it all. So it isn't really a technology issue. Yes, we need to become electrified and low carbon. We need to make the cars smaller, et cetera, et cetera. But they'll only get small and electrified if we make them cool. And to be cool, we have to market them. We have to increase the marketing opportunities. So all that money that goes into marketing needs to now shift into changing behavior. And that's a huge uphill battle that we face.
It's a huge uphill battle. Let's stay positive because we're about being positive.
I'm an optimist.
And one of the things that I love that you talked about was how when you do make something sexy, it actually grows really quickly. So for example, the scooter, these e-scooters, they have appeared out of nowhere. And in London where I live, suddenly there's
everywhere.
several companies.
Yeah. So one we found in marketing, we found, especially in mobility, if you make it cheap, quick, and fun, those 3 magic symbols, people glom onto them straight away. So when we had bike sharing, didn't really go very far for the longest time until it became a network system, and all of a sudden we had bike share all over the world. Micromobility, or what we refer to as bike share and scooter sharing took that piece, and because it was dockless, it could be anywhere. We didn't need a dock to actually station it. And they'd be able to raise capital really quickly. These scooters are fairly cheap unit costs, so they could scale tremendously. We have over 50 companies now worldwide operating scooter services, and I think they're in over 500 cities. So this is an 18-month, it's a 20-month-old industry. That's unheard of in the usual world of transportation, where things take hundreds of millions of dollars to develop and years to actually deploy. And it's just showing us how, with tactile ways of developing new devices, we can get them out to the public really fast.
So part of the answer is encouraging companies. There's also a role for governments to play, however, right? I know that you work with a lot of governments, cities, countries. Tell me, what are the kind of policies that really make a difference?
Yeah, one of the big things that's happening now is that governments are realizing that the streets are basically their platform. So think of the streets as the internet. The public internet is now moving from our virtual world to our real world, and all these devices are basically using the right-of-way. And so the public right-of-way is the domain of the government. They're realizing now that they can actually act more like a platform and actually start creating guardrails on how should we use the right-of-way. All these things are great, but if everybody uses their own large vehicle, it's just going to create the same problems we had yesterday. So they need to figure out ways how to make it safe, affordable, interoperable, but also make it measurable so that we're using the right mode for the right trip choice at the right time of day based on our individual needs. And we keep talking about it with governments that it's not a one-size-fits-all like cars were 50 years ago. It's something It's something for everyone, which is different, a much more diversified palette of choices that actually result in these more larger societal outcomes that we want to achieve.
So what does interoperable mean, by the way? What does
So
that
basically
mean?
what this means is that we have a system right now where if you have a government-run system, you can only use their services. If you have a private-based system, you can only use their services. So one example is Uber. You can use all their ride services, but you can also now use their scooters and their bikes. But that is one system. Right now, we cannot have an app that allows us to route, book, and pay all these different choices, whether it's bicycling, riding a service, or public transport, etc. So they're all basically gated, or they're walled gardens, as we call it. Interoperability allows us to become interoperable. So think of it as your mobile phone. If you travel, you can roam. These roaming agreements allow us to connect for different services. That ability is not available yet to this day in transport, but it's the next thing to basically create that multimodal system that we call mobility as a service.
And do you think that governments are the right people to, or the right groups to control that, or should it be, I don't know, city-based, or should it be company-based?
Yeah, that's the big
debate.
That's the big debate right now. It's a big arm wrestle. So the question comes down to data. Who owns the data, and who owns whose data, and who owns the customer's data? And we developed these things that are trying to create these new specifications on porting data from one user to the other user. We've got GDPR on privacy, all these big questions that comes down to data. But at the end of the day, there has to be some mechanism, whether it's a third party or a government entity or a transnational corporation, someone that can basically manage this. But the individuality is still need to be held in terms of the user's own pocket. They need to own their own time and date and space. But how we manage that time and date and space has to be managed by an entity that's looking out for those societal issues that we keep failing to deal with, whether it's congestion, air pollution, equity, affordability, sustainability, all those things that no one app, no one company, no one system can actually control.
Tim, I really thank you for your time. We could talk all day, but thank you very much for stopping by Hub Culture here at Transition Forum in Monaco, and I'm Edie Lush.